one of, if not the best draft of all time. Not in terms of the stars at the top, but just in terms of how deep you can go into the draft and still get an impact player. There has to be some way to incentivize winning. I've heard is getting rid of the draft entirely. Just having a free agency type thing that's never going to work. You have to give the smaller markets a chance.
Yeah. If over 10 years you can't produce 3 seasons or 4 seasons over 500, we'll force you to sell the team.
What's up, everyone, and welcome in to the Your Celtics Source podcast, coming to you for the first time since the All-Star break. On Thursday night, the Boston Celtics absolutely obliterated the Steph-less Golden State Warriors. Jaylen Brown had a triple-double. The Celtics' younger role players, Ugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman, each had big games. But in this episode, I actually want to take a step back from talking about the Celtics specifically and do more of a broader state of the NBA address and look at tanking and look at MVP and player participation, all that stuff that Adam Silver and the league has been sort of under questioning for the last couple of seasons, and very specifically this season with just how good the NBA draft is coming up and why, tanking in particular is such a big problem this season. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Thank you. I agree. It was super fun to watch the Celtics beat up on the Golden State Warriors. That's always a good time, and kind of excited. Not on topic here, but for tomorrow's gold medal hockey game, USA versus Canada. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we'll see. I believe Crosby for Canada is out. So
we'll see. They're very crafty and sneaky. They don't, those double touchers don't like to give us too much information.
You saw that?
So, but anyway, I agree with you. I'd love to focus on the big picture here, not who's going to win the West or the East or whatever, but the state of basketball. And that's a broad question, but I really like your topic, which is what can be done about tanking.
Mm-hmm.
And you go first. Tell me why it's such an issue.
Well, it's an issue for two things. One is that you have a league where a third of the teams right now are trying to lose games specifically for a draft that is supposed to be one of, if not the best draft of all time. Not in terms of the stars at the top, but just in terms of how deep you can go into the draft and still get an impact player, right? Usually there's occasional years where there's not a great player, but almost every year there is 1 or 2 great players. This year, there could be 8 to 10 players that will make a difference in year 1, right? Yeah. And that's why you see so many teams basically booking it from the start of the season that this is going to be a season that we are going to try and lose games. And I don't think there is a perfect solution, because if there was a perfect solution, we would have one. And I do think that it's overblown, very much so, because of how good the draft is this year. But in the past, there has to be some way to incentivize winning.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fundamental tension, right? Which is you want the teams that do poorly to get the better picks so they get better. Otherwise, you don't have a competitive league. What you don't want is all the teams being bad, even when they could be okay, to try and get better picks, to then mess them up and trade them away because they couldn't do anything. And there is a natural tension here that it's interesting. Other leagues have solved this broadly. You really see this the worst in basketball, I think, because of the impact of the few number of players can have on the game, right?
Right. But along those lines, right, you look at other leagues, especially football or MLB baseball, and baseball has its own problems right now that we could talk about another day. But
Another show.
yeah, but the impact that one player makes on a basketball court because they have to play both ends of the floor and because they are being either attacked or doing the attacking each and every possession, right? Based on your status in the league, right? Like you have to play high level offense and high level defense every single possession makes it that one player has far and away um effect on the game than any other sport, right? You look at
Well, I'd say I'd challenge that to a few exceptions. One, the quarterback. We know in football, your
but
team
they're
goes as the quarterback goes.
yes, but they're only playing one side of the ball.
True, but they're the most important player. But what
Sure.
we've seen is you can win with good, not great quarterbacks. Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
He's not an all-time quarterback, but he's a good quarterback.
And Jalen Hurts
And
to an extent as well.
Jalen Hurts,
Yeah.
sure, totally. And so it does have a big impact there. I think you could also see in hockey if you get that, shutdown goalie or you get that all-star center like a
Well,
Bedard, Connor Bedard, but
hockey is
still,
similar because they play both ends of the floor as well, right?
except that they
Players,
have way more depth because you're running 3 or 4 lines, so you're
right,
actually running 20 guys a game
right.
at
Whereas in,
least, right?
right.
If not more. Whereas in basketball, you might run seven.
Mm-hmm.
So, but let me give you some. I've actually done some research onto this. I had our research department work out my thesis, and the interns did a bunch of good work and pulled together some information for me. And there is actually one league. I'm going to surprise you with this. One league that actually is doing a good job in
Oh,
anti-tanking.
I think I know where you're going. You're going female hockey, aren't you?
I'm going with the Professional Women's Hockey League. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, they have one of the most effective strategies against tanking. Now, young league or whatever, but let me tell you what the bones of it are, and we can see if maybe Adam Silver wants to steal some things from this. The first thing they do is that once you are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, you start earning points. Okay, so
Mhm.
you don't get points till you're eliminated, but the team with the most points after elimination gets the number one draft pick. So essentially,
Okay.
there's a huge incentive to try and win once you are out of the picture.
Yeah. I actually love that idea. I think in the NBA, you have to do it a little bit differently. You can't do it after elimination just because
Well,
I
there's
think,
more to it. There's a little bit more to it. So this is the
oh,
first
yeah.
step. First thing.
Okay.
Second thing is they flatten the lottery odds. Instead of
Right.
giving the last place team the best odds to finish, they're spread more evenly among all the non-playoff teams, right? So they're changing that. They have draft lottery protection, prohibiting teams from picking in the top four in consecutive years, something Adam Silver has talked about.
I think we have that in the NBA. You can't pick three
Yeah,
years in a row or something or
yeah.
yeah.
And then they also have something called a burn point threshold, which is a proposal where all non-playoff teams have equal lottery odds, making it impossible to gain an advantage by losing. So they've done some really interesting things here. And I have to say, I kind of love the points for winning after, it's like two for a win, one for an overtime win, and zero for a loss, something like that, whatever it is.
So I've heard, and we all have heard some outrageous, stupid ideas to some actually pretty good ideas, and things falling in a range of that. The dumbest idea I've heard is getting rid of the draft entirely. Just having
Right.
a free agency type thing for that's never gonna work. You
No.
have to give the smaller markets a chance.
Yeah.
And then you've had things like, get rid of all lottery odds. Every team that falls below the playoffs after the play-in tournament is over, just even the odds completely and just right. But then you get teams like the Dallas Mavericks getting a Cooper flag again, right? A player
Right.
like that, right? That shouldn't happen. Like, right? Even with their
Yeah.
state in the league, there shouldn't be a way that you just barely lose out in the playoffs. You get the best. I actually don't like the idea of getting rid of the the odds. I think there has to be some sort of hierarchy, and so that the worst team does get the best pick because that's the only way you're going to make the playing field even. What I
Yeah,
would
I
do is,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, along the lines of what the hockey league is doing, right? I would instead of doing elimination because I do think with the play-in tournament it's so hard to, or it's, that doesn't come until so late into the season, right? Because there's so many ways, or I guess there's a better chance of making it into the play-in tournament later into the season. So by the time you get teams that are actually eliminated from the playoffs, it's too late into the season. You've already had, over 2/3 of the season already gone by with teams losing on purpose, like we've
Right.
seen. I think you have to set a number of wins. And people have said like 27 wins or 25 wins. If you are below 25 wins through some mark of the season or something like that, you get placed into the lottery odds. And then from there on out, it's winners. You get points for winning
Yeah.
towards,
Right. So maybe the bottom 10 teams,
right,
eight
or something
teams
like that.
are in their own like tournament for the top lottery
Correct,
picks.
but it's not like an after season thing. It's during the season. It's you set a number of wins by a certain date, and then from there on out, wins count towards your lottery
Well,
odds.
well, maybe just the easier way to do it is the bottom 10 teams after 50 games
Right.
are in it, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to worry about like number of wins. Like who cares? Because maybe it's super competitive that year and whatever. Like so it's like the
The
bottom
way
10 teams are now in their own bracket.
Right, but they start at zero from there. You have the
Yeah, yeah,
bracket. It sets
yeah.
at zero, and then it's wins from there on out.
Yeah, and then when you run up against the Celtics and you're the Charlotte Hornets, you're playing to win because like
Right.
you got to play the good guys and the bad guys. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter, right? Now what'll be really interesting to that is the effects of scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes scheduling much more complicated
You
because
have to
if
even.
you take a bullet, Washington Wizards, those guys, and they have a really rough back of the season because they got to go play the Knicks and
Right.
the Cavs and the Heat and us or something. Then like they're like, ugh. But if you run up against other,
Now
so
here's where that might, my thinking, now that I think about it, there are some flaws to every system, right? That's why there isn't a solution right now. One of the flaws to this proposed system by yours truly is the fact that the NBA stacks their, better games, their national TV games in the back half of the season after football season because, right, they
yeah,
want people to watch. So they stack all these good games at the end of the season. And I don't, probably these good teams that they have stacked up are probably games that are from teams that are not tanking anyway. But there is the possibility that you have these teams that are in that tanking, draft now or whatever tournament, whatever you want to call it, right?
yeah.
They now are playing these tough games on national TV, or I guess, better against better opponents in the second half of the season.
Yeah, but that's so what? So we have more enjoyable basketball.
Yeah,
That's the whole goal here, right? Is fan
I
engagement
guess.
and
Yeah.
enjoy. Um, I do kind of like this theory. There's a way we could well, we can't test it. There's a way folks could test it. Obviously, you could test it in the G League, but since
Mhm.
the draft in the G League is meaningless, right?
Right.
What you could do is use money as a substitute. They could say, we're going to take $5 million and allocate it based on the winners of the top whatever. And so instead of actually getting draft capital, you incent the players to play hard and the coaches because there's actual money because you don't make that much money in the G League, right?
Right.
So you could do $10 million. I don't know what the right amount of money is, but
Mhm.
if you said to every G League, if you're in the, you have to be a little careful because you don't want them all to tank and then try and get into the money or whatever. So maybe there's some money for the winners more than that. But if you took an allocation of dollars and use that to celebrate the the
There's a little celebration.
the play of the bottom 10 teams and said, okay, you get $50,000 if you win, actually, which would be equivalent to the team that won the first pick in the lottery, that you might be able to simulate and see how that worked.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't think there is a solution right now. Or there is not a perfect solution. There are better solutions than what we have right now. I don't think finding teams for tanking like what they're doing right now is going to work. And Adam Silver has said he's going to change things up next year anyway. I think this is just the start. But you're selectively finding teams that, are not the full amount of teams that are actually doing this, right? So you look at You know,
Right. Well,
I'll say, right, um, Anthony Davis has been ruled out for the season with, a surgery that he's going to do or whatever. Who knows whether that's a legitimate surgery or not? I'm not going to sit here and say it's not, because that's just not a fair thing to say,
right.
right? Because you don't know the actual,
Yeah.
news. But I can tell you that Trae Young is fully healthy and hasn't played a game yet for the Wizards, right? And
Hear me out. Hear me out. There's a nuclear option. This is the nuclear option. They could force owners who don't win enough, force them to sell their teams. You
yeah,
can't
I mean,
continue to own the team if you don't have at least a 500 record in 5 of the last 10 years. They'll just sell the team for you.
yeah, I don't know.
That
I don't think you're going to get
that
owners to
would
sign off on that, right? Don't you have to get owners and
that
whatever?
well, you'll get a bunch of owners who care about it, right? Because they know it's bad for business, all the tanking. Everybody knows it's bad for business, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that's a nuclear option, which now it has to be a long time, right? You can't
Mm-hmm.
be like 1 season, 2 seasons, but
Right.
if over 10 years you can't produce 3 seasons or 4 seasons over 500, we'll force you to sell the team. That
Yeah.
would make people act.
I know, but I just think 10 years down the road, we're trying to get something that's going to work next year. And, you
Well,
now have to.
you can do multiple things. You could be like, hey, these are the short-term rules,
Mhm,
and this is the long-term consequence. So in the long run, we still have a backstop.
right. So I guess you could have both of those in as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I
I'd
think
love
this
to
is
hear what our I'd love to hear what our listeners think too. I know they've thought a lot about this. Leave some comments below. Tell us what else you think might work.
yeah, I think, you know, we can move on from here. This is something to keep an eye on probably over the summer when they put in the rules, because we know for sure there are rules coming next season, without a doubt. Adam Silver has said there are rules coming next season. I think the bigger issue actually in the NBA is not the tanking. It's the you buying a ticket, you paying whatever amount, I'll just say $400 for an average ticket, something like that.
Well, maybe not that much, but 150, sure.
For a
Not
sure,
everything's as expensive as the garden.
fair, fair enough, fair enough. You paying $150, or let's do $3,000 for a courtside seat. Let's just say that,
Sure.
right? Let's
Sure.
pick the best seats. You pay three
Yeah.
thousand bucks for a courtside seat, and you don't know until 10 minutes before the game whether the star that you are paying that money to play is actually going to play. They don't tell
Yep.
you before you buy the tickets. It's 10 minutes game time decision. And we have stars coming into the league on $50 million contracts saying before the season, just so you know, I am going to miss 30 games this season. Not before
Yeah.
an injury, not after an injury, before any injury, fully healthy, saying, I'm telling you right now, it's in my contract that I will miss 30 games this season. How do you do that? Is there a limit the number of games? So you're playing only 65 games a season and you're getting, each game counts more and you are forcing players to play? Do
Maybe
you
you can
keep
only miss you can only miss a certain number of games without an independent medical analysis or something, or I don't know. I don't know how you do
right?
it. Like
They already have the 65 game rule for awards, but you're getting a year right now where Jokic and SGA and Wemby are close to missing games, not because they're the guys that are sitting out purposefully,
yeah.
but because they're actually injured. And
Yeah.
you might get an MVP, race here that is, I'm not saying these are not worthy candidates, but you don't have Wemby, SGA, and Jokic even eligible on the ballot. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that fans want to see, right?
Yeah, I think
there's
it's hard.
there's two separate things to this. There's
I think
there's
we
the injury
tackle
side of it and the awards, and then there's just the enjoyment of the game and guys not playing.
yeah. I think we tackle the draft lottery first, and that like one thing at a time, right? You're trying to overall too much. Let's fix the tanking. Let's fix the that, and then we got to fix the play. I will say, because I know we're getting up against it here. I will say there's one thing. Did I get this right? One one thing that I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
331, 3-1, March 1st.
Yeah,
Somebody is
you
coming
think
back.
You think that's the date?
Oh, I guarantee it. I would bet that line.
Yeah, I just
Hassan Tatum
I
will
know it
return.
just it feels like something fishy is going on here between the Jason Tatum, the organization, this TV show or TV series that he's going to be putting on, this documentary. It just feels like he's rushing it back, or not even rushing it back, but there's something going on that is not going to work out in the long run. It just feels that way.
I don't feel that way. I think they have architected everything. I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here. I think we'll save I want to talk about in another episode. Maybe I'll do this as a bonus episode sometime early next week. I want to talk about Jaylen Brown and this allegation that's going on with the LAPD and Beverly Hills.
Not
That's
LA, Beverly Hills.
or or yes, but I think LA is, the police department is the one in charge of the whole thing or whatever. I think
Hmm.
um, something beyond just basketball is going on here for sure. Um, I don't want to say it's totally a racial thing, but it seems like Jaylen Brown has had, obviously he's had a little bit of a history with that, and it just feels like something not right is going on here. And we don't know the full story of that yet. The LAPD did come out and say that, they were wrong and they lied about the fact that there was a permit needed. Right, Jaylen Brown didn't need a permit and he didn't have one. But then they also, said that they shut it down not for the permit reason, for the fact that
Right.
it looked sketchy. Like that can't be used in my eyes for evidence or anything.
Not
Like
a lawyer, but doesn't seem looking sketchy as appropriate, right?
looking sketchy does not seem like viable evidence. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about that another day. As for now, we'll wrap it up here. We will be live after the Lakers game on Sunday. It is an earlier start, even though it's in LA, a 6:30 Eastern start, I believe. So that'll be a fun game. It looks like all three stars for the Lakers are on the court. So, it'll be a good test despite the Lakers' ups and downs. I still think this is a good test to see where the Celtics are, at least matching up against the Western Conference.
No
But yeah,
doubt.
follow on social media. Check out this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcast. Please give us a like and a rating there. And until next time, go Seas.